and welcome back. Today we want to talk about Pappy Van Winkle bourbon. If you don't know what that is, just skip ahead, go to the next episode, go watch something else, forget I even mentioned it. For those of you who drink bourbon, then you obviously know what it is. It's one of the most sought after, hardest to find bottles of bourbon there is. They don't know how many they make. It's supposedly only a few thousand bottles, so people go crazy around the holidays to try and get a bottle. They wait online in the rain, they enter lotteries, they enter contests, they look it up online, seeing what stores supply it, but it's really a lost cause because you're really only going to get a bottle if you spend a lot of money in a particular store and you know somebody. So I was lucky enough to get a bottle this year, and the bottles aren't all that expensive. I mean, they're like under $100, $200, depends on where you buy it, of course. But on the secondary market, they sell for anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, which I think is ridiculous because it's great whiskey, but I don't think anything is worth $2,000. I don't care if it's wine from France or champagne that Napoleon drank, whatever. I don't think it's worth it. You're better off just giving it to a charity and raffling it off and having them keep the money. You'll feel a lot better than if you had drank a bottle of this stuff. And of course, if you have the tag in the bag, it goes for a lot more money. So this stuff was so good that the founder, Pappy Van Winkle, decided to put his name and face on each and every bottle. It was only good enough for him to call his own private reserve, and it comes from the Stitzelweller distillery, which is now defunct. They went out of business in the 1990s. So there's 3 bottles with his face and name on it. One is the 15-year-old, this one is the 20-year-old, and a 23-year-old. The 23 is the hardest to get. Some people say the 15 is best. Other people will say, you know, the 20 is comparable. Again, great stuff. Not going to bash it or badmouth it or anything like that. But quite frankly, I was down in Kentucky, and I tasted this stuff next to an Orphan Barrel Rhetoric, which is 22 or 23 years old, and the Michter's 10 or 20-year-old. The reason why Michter's is so good is because it's delicious. I mean, it blows the stuff away. It's so much more complex. But the problem is that Michter's sometimes uses batches from like a 15-year-old bourbon in their 10-year. They can't call it a 15 because it could only go by the youngest whiskey in the bottle. So even if there was a drop of 23-year-old whiskey in here, but the youngest was 10, they still have to name it 10. We're going to talk about these another time. If you could get one of these aren't cheap either. These are about $500–600, but at least you're not going to pay $1,000 for it and wind up with not something that's not as great tasting. This Rhetoric, it's good. Michter's is still my favorite. This stuff is cheaper. This is probably under $150. So back to the Pappy. When I got this from a retailer, I was a little upset because I noticed that a couple of drops leaked. I smelt it, and so now you immediately wonder, I mean, is there a counterfeit? Because people do take these empties and refill them and reseal them. I don't know how they do the laser tags or the holograms or whatever. And then you even have some people that go and measure how far from the top it is. This one looks like it's about 3 3/4. The fill line is about 3 3/4 from the top. And people that go and sell these, or try and resell them, I should say, will go and measure this and see, make sure that the fill line is there, that you take an ounce out of each bottle, 25 ounces, you have a whole nother bottle. Obviously counterfeiting is illegal, and it is illegal to resell liquor if you don't have a license. You will see these in liquor stores behind a glass case, which is locked, and you will see this bottle, again, going for anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 to $1,500 to almost $2,000. So I was lucky enough to get a bottle this year, and I was telling my friend, he's like, what are you saving it for? Because he knows I can't sell it, he knows I wouldn't sell it. But I said, I'm going to either open it when I get terminally ill, God forbid, or if I win the Powerball. Because if I'm terminally ill, I want to enjoy it, last few months of my life or whatever it may be. Or if I win the Powerball, then it really doesn't matter. I'm going to be spending my money, if not on this, on a lot better whiskey that's probably a lot more expensive. So now I have to open it just to prove a point. I'm a little curious to see if it is counterfeit. I want to see what the hype is. Like I said, I did taste it down in Kentucky, but that was a few years ago. And I've got a couple important birthdays coming up. Me and my friends were all turning 50 this year, so that's a special occasion. Tomorrow is my best friend's birthday, and he likes bourbon, so I'm gonna give him a little pour. So I sterilized these cool little bottles. These are about 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces. That's about 50 milliliters, would be 1.5 ounces. I got these labels so they know that it's Pappy. I printed them out. I'm going to give one to my one friend that's turning 50, my other friend who's turning 50, my brother's turning 60 next week. And this way I'm just going to break it down, have a sip, and just share the love. I usually don't make a big ceremony about opening any bottle of anything, but I figure I'd save this for an episode. I think it's episode worthy, and this way people will see, should I give it to them, they say, oh, it's not really Pappy. Well, I'm showing it to you. Go to the videotape. If you think that I cut and edited whatever, then just give me it back and I'll give it to somebody else, or I'll drink it myself. So here we go. We are going to open it now. Carefully open this up. That's it. It's done. Can't resell it now. Take the foil off. I just got to look at this cork. So I don't know why this leaked. It smells like bourbon. I'm going to carefully measure this. 1.5 ounces. Okay. I'm going to put it in this nifty little Japanese pourer. I am going to put it in the bottle for my friend's 50th birthday tomorrow, and that's my gift to him. Doesn't even go to the top, but that's okay. There you go. 45, 50 milliliters of Pappy Van Winkle. So for me, I am going to use a very clean Glencairn glass. You could use any one. I like the fancier one. I think it's worthy. We're going to use a smaller pour here. I use 1/3 of an ounce. Carefully pour it. Put the cap back on this so the air doesn't get to it, because wine, any spirit, once the air gets to it, it will start to affect the taste. So I'm just going to sit here. Well, it does smell delicious. I'll give you that. It does sit. The last time I had it was at a place in Kentucky. I thought the Michter's won. I think the Orphan Barrel came in second, the Rhetoric, and this came in third, but we're going to give this another try right now. Cheers. Yeah, it's good stuff. A little bit of burn on the end. It's less than 91 proof. It's 90 proof. It's delicious. But I think with the Michter's 20, it's a lot more bolder. It's a lot more complex. This is very light. It's almost like candy. If you want something more complex, you want this. If you want the lighter, fruitier, a candy-like taste, you're going to want to go with this. It's good. It's not worth the money. It's not worth waiting out in the rain for. If you're lucky enough to have a sip of it in a bar and pay $65 for it, that's as far as you should go with it. You shouldn't pay any more for it. It's just to taste it, so you could be a bourbon aficionado and say, yeah, I tasted the Pappy Van Winkle and it was fantastic, or I thought it stunk, or I think so much other stuff is better. There's a lot of good bottles out there that you could get. It's good. It's just not all that. Anyway, to all my friends turning 50 and 60, and here's to the new year, 2018. Cheers. Enjoy. It's good.